You have Kamala's economic team and Biden's economic team essentially being run by BlackRock executives. And then, when Trump was in office last time, Larry Fink had basically, BlackRock designed the U.S. fiscal response to COVID that they began implementing before a pandemic was even declared. And it resulted in one of the biggest, wealth transfers in American history, and printed more money than at any other time in U.S. history. I mean, they worked with Obama during '08, they worked with Trump, and they worked with Biden, and would have worked with Kamala. He's retired the term ESG, and uses things like sustainable investing and climate finance and other terms now. But he openly says that it was never about conservation or saving the planet. It's about profits.
The 2008 financial crisis left a significant mark on the global economy, erasing over $2 trillion and devastating the livelihoods of countless investors and traders. However, one asset management firm and its wealthy clients benefited greatly from the ensuing chaos that nearly permanently devastated the global economy. This firm, which was allegedly central to the global economy's recovery, benefited so greatly from the crisis that it managed to increase its assets under management from $1.3 trillion to over $7 trillion in the decade following the crisis. In the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, BlackRock, now the world's largest asset management firm with over $10 trillion in assets under management, helped the U.S. government to valuate and sell billions of dollars in ailing assets. The arrangement drew a lot of criticism at the time, because not only were important details shrouded in complete mystery, but BlackRock was also allowed to sell the same assets to its wealthy clients. Despite the criticism from all quarters, BlackRock has remained joined at the hip with the U.S. government, especially in times of crisis, and helped the government through two more crises. First, it helped oversee the Fed's efforts to stabilize the bond market amid the economic turmoil caused by the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. Then, again, to help the U.S. government arrange the sale of $114 billion in securities held by failed lenders Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank in 2023. One thing all of these arrangements have in common is that they always promise to be very lucrative for BlackRock, which has continued to grow its wealth and influence across the globe. Today, experts warn that the U.S. economy, and by extension, the global economy, is heading for another imminent crisis, necessitating more assistance from BlackRock. However, the situation is even more nuanced now because BlackRock no longer wants a few $1 trillion. It has become way more ambitious than it was in 2008. Now, BlackRock wants to tokenize the entire planet, sparing nothing in its depravity, not our oceans, mountains, rivers, and all they contain. Everything will be put on the blockchain, creating a multi-trillion-dollar industry that will help BlackRock and the rest of the global elites own everything, while the rest of us struggle to survive. Popular investigative journalist Whitney Webb explains the urgency of the situation in a recent interview with TFTC, exposing well-laid plans to establish a stringent debt-based monetary system for the global economy to bring the global elites closer to establishing their endgame. As we bring you clips from the video, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more thought-provoking content. Thanks for the support, and enjoy the video.
Well, one thing I want to bring up about, people like Gillibrand and Lummis is that they frame a lot, and especially Lummis, frames a lot of her crypto advocacy as necessary to ensure dollar hegemony, right? And so as I understand it, and a lot of, rhetoric I've heard in the Bitcoin space for years is that fiat is terrible. It's broken money. We need to move on from fiat. And so hearing things like that from Lummis, hearing Trump at the Bitcoin conference say, actually, the Bitcoin and the dollar are not competing. Bitcoin is going to strengthen the dollar and all of this stuff. I think it should be a harbinger for concern for people that don't want a debt-based monetary future. And unfortunately, it's essentially been admitted that, the next president, who we know now will be Trump, is going to face some sort of U.S. government debt crisis. And of course, that debt crisis is the consequence of wildly irresponsible fiscal policy, right? And so what I am concerned about is that there will be no accountability for that. There is a plan to use things that were meant, or at least pitched, as destroying fiat and the debt-based monetary system, will be used instead to usher in a a newer version of it that, as Mark pointed out earlier, it will likely be deflationary, but only because they've stolen all of the assets and really most things of value. So at that point, they do want a deflationary system because they have hoarded all of the wealth, and they don't want their wealth to inflate away now that they hold almost all of the cards, right? And so, what concerns me there then is the stable coin play, as we set up for, a long time. Stable coins have the potential to be just as programmable and surveillable as a CBDC could be. And the Fed and the national security community, meaning, the CIA, among other agencies, have been very open that stable coins will ensure dollar hegemony. And you have, stable coins like Tether, for example, saying that we're a partner of US dollar hegemony. And, Trump with his family's, stable coin project having recently come out. It's about having globalizing
I don't think that's
the dollar.
Going to get much adoption.
Well, no, maybe not that necessarily, but it shows that the intent is to globalize the dollar and essentially use dollar stable coins, not that aren't necessarily directly issued by the U.S. government, but will be regulated by it, to become, essentially a de facto world currency. That's essentially the push. And, it's essentially been happening relatively quietly for some time in economies that are dramatically unstable and have been made unstable by entities like the IMF, for example, which, the U.S. military refers to the IMF as a financial weapon of military power of the United States government. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so, and then Argentina, of course, a lot of people are using Tether because their local currency is no good. And that's happening in other places around the world that have also been subjected, to essentially financial warfare by these same predatory, again, debt slavery model based institutions. And so will this actually improve the situation? Will it prevent future irresponsible fiscal policy if this is what ultimately ends up happening? It will come down to people resisting that and saying, no, that's not okay. If really it is true that people in the Bitcoin space are opposed to debt slavery and debt-based monetary a debt-based monetary paradigm, which is what I have heard for a long time, and I absolutely agree with that.
It's a well-established fact that the world's massive debts are unsustainable, and immediate steps must be taken to ensure the global economy does not return to the dark ages. Another established fact is that the global elites and their puppets, our global leaders, do not care about doing anything but what benefits them and contributes to the endgame, the you'll own nothing and be happy endgame. Whitney believes the next crisis is exactly how they will achieve this aim. She is skeptical of the sudden acceptance of Bitcoin and stablecoins, which were previously touted as being dangerous to the dollar's hegemony. Whitney warns that this change in tune is well thought out and designed to manipulate and deceive. She urges Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investors not to lower their guard and reject plans to co-opt this powerful industry and technology. More importantly, Whitney warns about BlackRock's plans to use the blockchain to tokenize the entire planet while forcing everyone to adopt their carbon credit system. Here are more clips from the interview.
And I am also concerned about the introduction now of climate finance as a way to use carbon market schemes or other forms of carbon pricing, or some of these efforts to securitize the natural world, like one that was we recently wrote about the Amazon rainforest, for example, being securitized by the guy that invented ETFs. And used to be, head of BlackRock's global investments or something like that. These are going to be used as different places to shovel debt, because if you have a huge debt crisis, you're looking for things to, shovel the debt into to make your debt problem go away. And so, as we've talked about, I think starting, maybe 3 years ago, Marty, on your show, I've been on talking about this effort a while, right?
At least 5.
yeah, an effort to securitize, the natural world and create this new asset class, that these groups that back this call nature's economy, because they can, essentially quadruple or quintuple the amount of assets in the current economy and basically keep the existing casino model that Wall Street and these criminal banks have, go on forever. They need that new asset class to keep their models going. That generate them a lot of money. And the fact that, there's all these efforts from people like Lummis and Gillibrand and others that want to support the dual banking system that rewards irresponsible government fiscal policy and criminal acts of the private banks. I'm concerned about that. And the fact that, in Trump's administration in particular, you have someone like Howard Lutnick closely tied to Tether, but also very connected to ESG, the Sustainable Development Goals. Cantor Fitzgerald has an entire fund dedicated to implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, right? Which includes, by the way, digital ID as part of that, and programmable surveillable money, linking a digital ID to some sort of CBDC or UBI biometric wallet and all of this stuff. This is in the SDGs. He's, on the board of this company that we've talked about most of this year, actually called Satellogic, that is involved in several efforts to securitize nature, and turn basically things like the Amazon rainforest into, tradable financial products that don't actually conserve anything but are framed as that. And then, this effort to basically install a predatory global carbon market over Latin America that at the same time it ends local and national sovereignty, or would de facto end it and lead toward a more regional government block and try and build out like a smart power grid and 5G stuff throughout the continent under the guise of conserving it and ending climate change. Ultimately, as I've argued in that, and Mark and I have argued in some of our other pieces, the goal is really just to use that stuff to shovel debt someplace. And even, RFK Jr.'s former VP pick, Nicole Shanahan, she's led research projects about how to facilitate quantitative easing by quantitatively easing into, carbon sequestration projects and tokenized carbon credits and carbon coins and all of this stuff. So this is something that is definitely being talked about by figures that are around the current administration. And if there is a debt crisis, even though, Trump pulled people out of the Paris Accords and all of that stuff, Elon Musk quit all the advisory panels and councils he was on in the first Trump administration because Trump ended the U.S.'s commitment to the Paris agreements, right? But this time he's obviously come back in a big way, and as recently as February was pushing for carbon taxes and some other form of carbon pricing, and has been a big advocate for that for really several years.
We argue endlessly about everything while the forces that truly control the world rise above these distractions with ease. Ever wonder how a small group of people can dominate a planet of 8 billion? This is precisely how. They stay relentlessly focused on their goals. Even when they do clash over methods or strategies, they never lose sight of their ultimate objectives, objectives that voices like Whitney Webb have been warning us about for years. Digital IDs, programmable and traceable money, the global ESG credit system, and the ominous "you'll own nothing and be happy" reset. These are all pieces of the larger endgame. The truth is, the global elites and the ruling class are just two faces of the same coin. Understanding this reality is key to resisting these unsettling plans. The sooner we all recognize this, the better equipped we will be to stand against these orchestrated moves toward greater control. What are your thoughts on Whitney's interview? Do you agree that they are now on the verge of revealing their final endgame, and it would be too late to resist once everything is out in the open? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.